Well, welcome everybody, and so I'd say so. Today we're all just on here. Usually we all pop up in sequence and so forth. But our friend Ramia unfortunately couldn't make it today, so she's our expert at it. So MC is sitting in for her, so she's running this today. And as you might have guessed, it's our holiday special for the Tom and Lonnie Chat. I've got my colleagues, Dr. Lonnie Love over at Sandia. Hey, Lonnie.
Hey.
And we got Dr. CyberKyle over at Georgia Tech.
Happy holidays.
And look, you clipped on a nice tie. That's very nice, Kyle. And then we've got our friend Stephen Lamarca. Congratulations, Stephen, on is this your first year anniversary? We were talking about that earlier.
It is. Thank you so much, Tom.
There you go. There you go.
Celebrating it by joining us. That, your wife must really love you.
Yeah.
Made a bunch of rackets starting up the motorcycle at 5:30 in the morning to get out here. So,
oh, wonderful. Well, you should have just broadcast from home. I'm sure she wouldn't have minded.
No, because I would be too loud. I'd be even loud. I'm even louder than the motorcycle.
So today, and we'll keep things nice and short so we don't ruin your holidays out there too much in podcast land. But today we're going to go over some of our Christmas wish lists. And then some of the things you might be hearing about from our wish list as we move forward. But I think the first thing I do want to state is I have to say that Stephen wins the prize for the coolest background. Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about your background there?
Yeah. So I entered into ChatGPT. Make me a modern rendition of Santa's workshop for a Zoom background or for a telecon background, and make Santa's workshop having implemented modern CNC and automation technologies and metal additive. And it kind of made like a hybrid machine back here, which is really cool. I did not tell it to do that, but that looks like a vertical machining center that is doing metal additive with a robot arm tending to it.
That's so cool. My job is complete. I don't need to do any work anymore, man.
To be fair,
microphone.
I think there should be some fencing, some safeguarding around this robot.
I was going to say, move your microphone. I don't see any safety glass. Is that Santa behind your microphone? Oh, there you go.
Santa's about to get taken out by that robot. Oh, man.
Yeah. This was only the first iteration, though. I didn't even decide, because I know the energy footprint on that. But
well, it's a good thing they're restarting 3 Mile Island, because now you can make your, we'll be ready for Easter.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyways, but I do have to say, I find that interesting, and it's a little side topic, but it's sort of interesting to see how some of the private sector is now starting to get into certain areas that the government has been in for a long time, and they're doing quite well. And I think it's sort of a great thing. You take a look at space launch, you take a look at energy sector, and so forth. I think it's sort of an exciting time. So I'm very excited to see what 2025 and beyond are going to bring us. But that being said, let's pivot over to our holiday list, and I got a couple of them that are just sort of kicking off and so forth in terms of some of the cool things that we see coming down the road. First one, of course, is hybrid machines, as you see over there in Santa's workshop. Guys, what do you think about what's coming up with hybrid machines in the next year or two?
Tom, when before we came on, and you were here, I was telling the guys a story that I think is really relevant for the small and medium-sized enterprises. Back when we did the printed car with IMTS, I'd been working with Rick Neff for probably around 6 months, trying to get a partnership with Cincinnati. And he kept calling me up going, Lonnie, I can't get them to buy in on this. They don't get it. And so he's trying to get his leadership to embrace advanced manufacturing. And he goes, and it was about Christmas time. He goes, what should I do? I was like, look, why don't you just go out and buy a little MakerBot, set it up on your desk, and start printing stuff and showing people where it can go. And lo and behold, he called me up about a week later. He goes, Lonnie, it was amazing. He goes, I had the most busiest office because it clicked. It really clicked. And so I think on the Christmas gift, on the hybrid side, what would be really interesting is to look for, is there a low cost entry? Is there a way to get something like really small, inexpensive, just to learn on, and before you make the big dive into into buying one of these really industrial systems. CyberKyle, is there anybody that makes a small, low-cost hybrid system or something that a machine shop, if they wanted to delve into it, could buy and experiment with?
You know what I love about all this is that all the components are there, right? It's a welder and a CNC gantry system, and I think most people have a welder. I would guess that a lot of mom and pop shops have a welder sitting in their back corner. Georgia Tech has done some early research. We've actually published a couple how-to guides online of how do you stick a welder in the spindle and just put a bead of metal down on a substrate. So I don't know if anyone sells it, but I think it's coming, and I think it's pretty easy to do once you kind of think about it the right way. I don't think it's that hard.
Isn't there that company? Is it Tormach that has some low-cost CNCs and is starting to look at that?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned it. That's even one of my Christmas list items. Out of, I think, is it Lonnie's list that we're going with on this?
I don't care.
So the Tormach has this brand new 1500 MX system. It's their biggest CNC machine yet. It's got a great build volume, and I love the Tormach interface. But yeah, their 1100 and their 1500 MX series is a perfect system to integrate hybrid. I know some of our friends have put in welders and robots together to make a hybrid machine.
Yeah,
Cool.
the other thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to make sure we don't get too long. But we've got some, and maybe that's one of our shows next time around. But I mean, you've got robots loading and unloading the machines, right? And so the reality is, if I just put my robot in the machine, right, I can move the table around. I don't even need to move the robot around.
Yeah.
And so you've already got a robot that you can mount a welder to. And I think they're really the two things that you have to deal with there. Number one is just, I think we all know machine tools don't like heat. And so sticking a welder inside a machine tool is not the best thing in the world. So how do you deal with that? And then I think the second thing is, actually, as we were sort of, picking on Stephen a little bit for the safety issues on his background, but I think there are some safety issues and so forth, because putting a robot in there, now the door is open and so forth. So you've got to sort of figure out how to shield in there. And also, even if you put the welder in the spindle, like Kyle was talking about, how do you protect people from that, bright light and so forth. But I agree, it's coming. And I think the other piece that needs to come online is a lot of the software. And we see a lot of our software partners. I mean, if you were at IMTS, you saw a lot of cool software that's going to be driving these things. So it's pretty cool.
What I love about what Lonnie says, people took a risk. They tried it. They were willing to get in there, get their hands dirty, and prove that, hey, this stuff is accessible. You can actually do this. Now, so Tom, if you see some new equipment showing in my office, it's not a hint or anything for Georgia Tech. Don't worry at all.
Nice. All right. So, hey, speaking of which, what about some of the new, and we're going to hybrid, and I mentioned, and I think the other thing that people really need to pay close attention to is the software aspect of it. It's great to have the machines. Got to figure out what we're going to do with them, and I think that's slowly starting to emerge. But what about the software? Any thoughts on some of the new CAD CAM capabilities that are coming along?
I've been at Sandia, they forced me to use Creo, and it's killing me. And I was talking to some company recently, and they're looking at using large language models to basically make the interfaces kind of an add-on for these really complex tools to kind of make it much easier to work with. And probably 80 to 90% of what you do over and over and over again on these CAD tools. But they got so many features that you don't want to throw everything away. So I think one thing I'm looking at is some of these new AI tools as an interface for some of these really complex ModSim, really complex CAD CAM tools.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're 100% correct there, Lonnie. I remember talking to some of my students about the old days when I was a student and I had a program in assembly and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember my advisor saying, well, he was throwing all the switches for the ones and zeros on the computer when he was a student. And then compilers came along, and now you're not in assembly, you're writing in C or C++ or Python, whatever. And I agree with you. I see a lot of this AI capability as just another higher level. I mean, one of the things you could do, it's a higher level interpreter. So you can actually have conversations. This is what I want and so forth. You tie that in with the so-called digital twin. And again, if you were at IMTS, some of those digital twins were awesome. They had,
Yeah.
they had big TV screens inside a machine tool mock-up, and it looked like the machine tool was running, but it was beautiful. And so the reality is, start to tie all that together, and your modeling and simulation do much better, and then you can go off and program. And to me, that frees up. So you still need people who are knowledgeable in manufacturing and what does the tooling look like and where do I go. But now you're tied into different companies like MSC, Granger and so forth, and you can order up the tooling accordingly and say, yeah, this is available. Here are the costs. You can have it do a lot of the analysis, trade-offs to save you money in the whole bit. So I agree. I think some of this cool stuff is coming along.
All right, I got to jump in here on the programming side.
Yeah.
I love data science and programming, and here's an item for my wish list. When I do a Python program and it says, "Oh, did you mean to add a period here? Aren't you forgetting something?" Well, yeah, of course. Why don't you add it in for me? So that's my wish list item. If it can recognize that I'm missing something on my G code, right? If I forgot an M30 at the end to shut off the program.
Yeah.
My wish list item is, let's add it in there. Let's leverage some of these AI models, the large language models, to fix my G code for me.
Yeah.
100% correct. I mean, when I was a grad student programming in C, the compiler would throw up on me if I forgot a semicolon at the end of the line. I'm like, well, if you know it's missing, I mean, it'd say missing, stick it in there. I mean, what's the difference between that and taking, Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and it says, hey, you got a typo here, or even the auto correct on those things. I agree 100%.
I've heard a really interesting twist on something where people are saying, well, AI is going to take away a lot of jobs. It's going to take away a lot of jobs for people that don't know how to use it, people that aren't using it. And so, like, Stephen started off this with, like, I used ChatGPT to generate Santa's workshop. How long did it take you to make that image, Stephen?
This was one iteration. And I only did one iteration because I made my prompt to the LLM as long-winded as possible. I wrote it like a paragraph because I wanted to do it in one iteration. ChatGPT, I have like the free account with it right now. And the pro account, whichever one you pay for, allows you to do a lot more iterations. But when it comes to image generation, they give the free account like 3 max. And in case this first one was wildly off and not good at all, then I was going to do an iteration. But the prompt was good enough that the first one was like, we don't need another one. We're good.
My Christmas wish on this is that all of our listeners that are working in a small, medium-sized shop just spend a little bit of time. Just spend a little bit of time getting on ChatGPT and play with it.
Yeah.
And because I think that it's still it's almost like Moore's law. This is just starting, and this is going to become a tool that you're going to need and you're going to really rely on. And to be competitive, it's like Steve Jobs talking about the computer being the bicycle for the mind. This is going to be the same thing. This is going to be an incredible tool.
I will also add that there's more good options for LLMs out there now. Yeah. Like, for example, I've been using a lot more of Perplexity. I use ChatGPT for image generation and for a lot of text generation. But when it comes to actually doing like research from 0 to 60, I like to use Perplexity because as the Gen Zers would say, it comes with receipts. It will actually build a bibliography, a works cited for you along with its result for you, which is very nice.
It's another tool, right? And I think it's exactly it. And let me just point out to all of you out there in podcast land, a lot of universities have their students have access to some type of non-free version, right? So I know here at Georgia Tech, we've got Microsoft Copilot. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is part of this is look around at some of your community colleges and so forth, and see what they're offering to some of the students, and whether you go off to take a course in manufacturing or sort of advanced capabilities and so forth, or CAD CAM or whatever, or send some of your people there for a little bit of training. But then they'll have access to these to the next generation tools. I mean, not the free ones, but the ones you pay for, and let them putz around with it and give it a try, kick the tires. And by the way, they're not all that expensive. But I was thinking, even like with Stephen. So for example, you see that Stephen is right in front of Santa Claus. I am sure that in his next iteration, he can say, hey, can you put Santa Claus down put Santa Claus in either the lower left-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner of the picture, and he would be there, right? And that's what we're really looking for. And it's sort of the same thing to say, well, hey, whoever, ChatGPT or whatever, what if I use a carbide tool or a ceramic tool, or CBN, in here? And it might say, well, if you go with, now I think we all know ceramic, you don't want to use coolant because you don't want to have that thermal shock. So if you're going to go with ceramic, then you can cut down on the coolant, et cetera, et cetera. But then it can also turn around and incorporate models saying, well, yeah, you could get white layer because it's going to get really hot, blah, blah, blah. So it's very cool where you can see all of this going, and you're going to be able to optimize, get 5, 10, 20% more out of your operations, even at your small machine shop level, using knowledge that you can gather from all over the world.
That's really a profound point. Is you could, when you're, again, if I'm going to get into a new area and I don't know what I don't know, this is a good place to ask the question. Yeah. Hey, I've never machined carbon. What are some of the things I should be looking out for? What's some of the tools that are ideal? And it'll help you just get your foot in the door. So absolutely great
Awesome.
topic.
And even if it's not, Lonnie, pick carbon, but even if it's just Inconel or stainless or what, or, hey, I've heard about CBN. Like one of the things I think a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you use diamond coating? Well, you can't use it on steel because the iron in the steel likes to bond with the carbon, in the diamond coating, right? So, okay, can't do that, but it'll say, hey, try CBN, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, we can go on that. Maybe that's another topic for, hey, picking your tools and so forth. Or maybe we should run some ChatGPT stuff or Microsoft Copilot or whatever and see what it does on some of these manufacturing questions.
What you said was ask the question. If you've seen it, let's go to Google, right? It's not only just giving you search results, it's actually compiling an answer to your search. You can literally ask Google.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, and then we'll move on to our next one because we're running out of time here. But I think, Lonnie, your statement is we don't know what we don't know. And I think this is going to help us understand that. I think that's a great statement. So, all right, next one on my list, I'm sort of going through here. I'm saving Lonnie's, which is number 5 for the end because it's got some serious implications. But AR, VR, what do you guys think about augmented reality, virtual reality, extended reality, whatever kind of reality?
I'm super excited. What I really want is a set of safety glasses that I can wear in the shop that can do overlays. And I think we're getting close because that solves 2 problems. Number one is that it's hands-free, right? It's on my glasses and I can interface with it. I've seen what some of the glass companies are coming up with. It's like we may not, they want to replace the cell phone, whereas that's your interface, right?
Yeah.
And that's where things are going. It's pretty exciting. But now, so I solve the hands-free, I get AR, VR, and my staff are using safety glasses. They actually want to use safety glasses. It's like win, right? I'm super excited about that.
Well, and I think it's pretty exciting there too. And then the other thing I was thinking about is even pairing it up with next generation earbuds. I've seen some demos now with some of the newer earbuds and let's say a newer smartphone that's got AI built into it. They both have AI on them, where somebody can be talking to you in a different language and it does a real-time language conversion, right?
Wow.
So now you got your and we also have the hear through. So the earbuds don't just block the noise; it can hear through and it can be smart about letting you know what's going on. So for example, mine will say, "Hey, if there's a siren, we'll let you hear that," as opposed to so you're not surprised, but you could hear the beeps, from something backing up or the beeping and so forth. But think about this. One of the things I talk to a lot of my colleagues on is hey, there's plenty of workforce. So let's talk about over in Europe. They're having, there are a lot of Ukrainians who are in different countries, but the problem is there's no training for them. These are smart people, but there's no training for them. Well, what if you could in real time, provide that translation and so forth, even in terms of operational procedures and so forth, all of a sudden you've really opened up that workforce capability. And we know we're going to need more people in the workforce and not just people, but we need to be able to fill those jobs, with capable people. So
Tom, I'm curious, do you think on these headphones we could, actually designate what you can tune in and out, maybe selective hearing as you might call it?
My wife does that.
Yeah, yeah, my wife would love that one too. But I mean, I was even thinking about it with Lonnie, right? I mean, the thing I think we got to be careful when we have our smart glasses is they're not watching, what is it, the Cartoon Network and so forth.
Yeah,
You know, pay attention to their machine.
But
yeah.
Tom, so that what you just said, I like also is that filtering. So you and I are both partially deaf because we work in machine shops, right? And so that's a really powerful tool. Is if I can have something that blocks out those really bad high frequency noises that damage the ears, but it allows in discussion. I can sit side by side with a colleague and have a conversation while all that noise is going on in the background. That likewise is a health and safety aid and so it's these advanced technologies killing two birds with one stone. We're helping with the effective use of people's time and protecting them at the same time.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think there's some pretty cool stuff coming along, and it's just going to leverage a lot of the everyday stuff that you can buy, that you're using at home, that you buy maybe off of Amazon or over at Walmart or whatever. I mean, it's pretty awesome. Okay,
Stephen, back to your and Lonnie point is the connectivity. Once these things actually start talking together, they're phenomenal individual products, as we've already established. But once they start interplay and really talking to each other, okay, well, your earbuds talk to your cell phone. Your cell phone knows what your machine's doing. And if there's an alert, it comes through on your earbuds. Say, hey, go check machine number 12 down here on the line. Once we can start making an ecosystem, I think it's going to be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this is a very primitive example, but I think we all crack open our laptops and the expectation is that, I'm just online, right? I mean, if I'm at the airport or I'm here or there, now you got to be careful of cybersecurity issues. I'll put that right in the forefront. But the reality is, like for universities, there's something called EduRoam. Any university I go through, most any university in the world that I go to, I open up my computer and I'm online in a secure fashion via EduRoam, which is wonderful. And I think that's what's going to start to happen with all these other ones. I mean, same thing with Bluetooth. Bluetooth doesn't really care whose phone your earbuds are tying into, or et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, so we got two more to go. One is the multi-material printer, so the ability to print multiple materials. Anybody want to tackle that one, because it does get to printing a very special type of material, which is Lonnie's special.
I like, there's some materials that like really high temperatures, the C103s, the Inconels, but they have terrible thermal conductivity. And then there's materials that can't handle high temperatures, but they have really good thermal conductivity, like copper. And so I think the blending of the two to make a better component is really pretty exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree. You could have thermal conductivity, electrical conductivity, optical conductivity. I mean, just all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I agree. And, right now, I think we're in the very early stages because, even if you're looking at functionally graded materials, I think we talked about that. I put down, if I'm putting down a little hard with this crazy background, right? But I put down two materials, and let's say this is my turbine blade and I want to put a harder material at the tip. Well, if I put them down right here at the interface, when I put them down there at the same temperature, but two different materials, when they cool, they shrink at different rates, and that can cause cracking and so forth. If you functionally grade them, so blend them from the base material to the to the tip hard material, but you blend them in a sort of a linear fashion or whatever. Okay, that reduces that stress. So, anyways, cool stuff.
I know a couple people are looking at electronics as well. Is how do you not only print multi-materials, but how do you make functional solid components with solid state electronics at the interfaces? I think that's just cool.
Yeah. I mean, chip production is 3D printing, right? I mean, they're printing. I mean, it's additive manufacturing. So,
and it's multiple materials. Absolutely.
There you go. So not that crazy, not that far out. They're just doing it a lot smaller than our big Mazak or Akuma. But we'll get there. All right. So that does move us into one of the ones, and I will turn this one over to Lonnie. Is sort of wood printing for a barrel. You're not talking gun barrel. You're not talking gun barrel, are you, Lonnie?
No. So I like bourbon. I like a really good bourbon. But I used to live in Knoxville, which was close to Louisville. But now it's hard for me to get to to all the distilleries and sample my favorite bourbons, and so I want to make my own bourbon. When I retire, I want to become a moonshiner. And so we're talking about printing copper and printing brass. I want to be able to print a still and be able to make my own spirits. So that to me would be just a blast, is being able to, it's like merging everything I love. There's CAD CAM, there's printing, and there's chemistry. What could be better?
And there's alcohol, right? Yeah, I know.
I can share with my friends. So yeah, I want to be able to 3D print a still, and then if we get into wood printing, I can print the barrel, and we're off to the races, man.
And I have to say the wood printing is actually pretty cool. So one of the things over at Oak Ridge that we saw is, okay, in order to really print big things, you've got to put some fiber in there. And of course, if you were at, what was IMTS? Which one was that, Lonnie? 2012?
2014.
2014. So IMTS 2014, where they 3D printed the car, there was carbon fiber, in the polymer. Now that made it pretty pricey, but one of the things that the team learned over at Oak Ridge is, I could put basically sawdust, wood fiber in there, and you could actually half or 1/3 the cost of the polymer. And get the same thing. And when you print it, as Lonnie always says, it still looks like you made it with, by melting crayons together. But when you machine it, it looks quite nice. I mean, it sort of looks like the Trex that you might have out on your porch and so forth.
One other thing I noticed is, like, we were printing out bamboo reinforced PLA. And when you would print it, it would smell like cookies. It was like, this is awesome. Like, the world's largest cookie.
Everybody on the team put on about 20 pounds during that time. You'd be printing, you're like, cookies. You'd run over to the donut place next door and get some donuts. So, but that's life. So.
Awesome.
All right. Hey. All right. So we're closing on the limit of our time over here. Let's see. We'll just sort of go around. I'm going to go from. I'm going to start with CyberKyle, then go to Lonnie, and then to Stephen with the cool, excellent background, and ask everybody just to send off any thoughts and holiday greetings. And CyberKyle, over to you.
Yeah, happy holidays to everyone here. Hope everyone has a great and restful break. Get some time off, take a bit of a break, and enjoy the time with your family and friends.
Same here. Ditto. I think this is a great time for everybody to just unwind and enjoy your family and friends and have a great holiday.
Happy holidays. And I hope Santa brings me a Singer 21C, the 3D printed hypercar. I never thought I would even see one in purpose. I'm not going to get one. I know he's not bringing me one, but I'm just so pumped. One was that IMTS.
I was out there. Their factory is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
It is an amazing. If you get a chance to go out to visit Divergent 3D, they're amazing. Absolutely.
Wow. Excellent. All right, guys. Well, and again, same for me. Happy holidays to everybody. Please do enjoy. Have a safe and happy set of holidays. Spend some downtime with people, because I think next year is going to be super busy. And, even though it's a little bit of a bummer of a year because we don't have an IMTS to go to, we'll be thinking about it. We'll be thinking about all sorts of cool new technologies to bring to you. And with that, we will wish everybody a happy set of holidays, and great seeing everybody. Stay safe.
Happy holidays.